The tragic story of the Titan Submersible ended yesterday, as many people feared that it would, with OceanGate Expeditions, the company behind it, announcing that the sub had been lost. All 5 of those on it believed to have been lost. And while there's still a lot of details that we don't necessarily know about exactly what happened, there is now good cause to believe that the sub suffered a catastrophic implosion before it had even reached the surface, I guess the depths of the ocean. As it was going down, it apparently was lost. Navy readings from several days ago apparently picked up what now is believed to have been that implosion. And so, look, not a lot of this is honestly that surprising for people who've been following the story. The expectation was that it had been lost, and it indeed was, which is obviously a tragedy. It's not the only sea-based tragedy of the last week or so, just a reminder, but there was a couple of aspects of the story that I wanted to focus on. And one that I think I really do understand why this is the thing that has really stuck out following the announcement, has to do with one of the passengers. And that is the 19-year-old passenger that had been on it, Suleman Dawood. So you're seeing there a shot of him with his father, both of whom had been lost on it. And the older sister of the businessman, that Azmeh Dawood, said that Suleman informed a relative before the trip that he, quote, wasn't very up for it and felt terrified about the trip to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. But, and this is just like on a personal level, not a policy level, not a global level, but on a personal level, just such a devastating thing to consider, agreed to go on it because the trip fell over Father's Day weekend and he was eager to please his dad, who was a big Titanic buff and really excited about the trip. Sister said, I feel disbelief now, it's an unreal situation. And look, all 5 were lost. In a very real sense, the conditions that led to them being lost are not that important. It's the fact that they were lost. But knowing that like your fear was justified, and then doing it not because you yourself wanted to, but because your father was excited about it, that is just such a devastating thing, Brett. I don't know. We had a little bit of a disagreement about this in our production meeting, but what do you make of this?
I mean, that's always how it is if you're scared of something. If you're scared of something and nothing happens during that event, then you were scared for no reason. And if something happens during that event, you were scared for a reason. The question is, how rational are you with your fear? And that is kind of the approach that I took one time, like after I was on a plane, like a 747 where an engine blew up. I was like, of course this is gonna happen, and it's gonna happen every time. And
it blew up while you were on the flight?
Yeah, I watched it. It was scary. Just looking out there, and it went, because you can kind of hear it. There's just like a flame and then no flame and then smoke and then nothing. And then the plane just kind of doing this. It was a troubled plane before we took off, but there were FAA regulations. And then you find someone, I sat next to a guy from Boeing who's like, yeah, you could just have one engine as long as the wing doesn't come off, you're fine. But that's it. That said, going to visit the wreckage of the Titanic in the submersible vessel created by a guy who was proud of how he flouted safety regulations right and left, that your fear then becomes more and more founded. And the question is, how do you want to respond to something like this? This is all about psychology. This is all about how an individual handles these kinds of things. Do you use your intellect to get past it? Or do you just sit there and have a moment where you understand, yes, this is wildly sad. No human being in their right mind would be upset with this kid for feeling that way, would be upset with the father for wanting to do something fun with his kid on Father's Day. And then the question that you have to then tackle, you get back to the intellectual, like, did they have any opportunity in a world where James Cameron has explored the Titanic wreckage 30 times? Do they have an opportunity to realistically understand just how sketchy this undertaking was? Or did they think, yeah, it's like, it's like going on a SpaceX thing. It's high profile enough, it should be fine.
Yeah, and look, you expect when you are rich and when you spend a lot of money on stuff, you expect that you'll be protected because you always are. And unfortunately, in this case, you are not. And look, I assume I am not yet a father, but I assume that part of being a father is or a parent, I should say, is encouraging your kids to do things that they're afraid of, because kids can be afraid of things that they shouldn't necessarily be. And if you simply bow to your fear on everything, then you won't experience a lot. But knowing where to draw that line and knowing who to trust, it kills. I very briefly before we move on, I did my trip to the Arctic or whatever, and I did, I was on a boat for a couple weeks or whatever to the North Pole. But I don't know if I've ever really talked about this. The boat that I went on was not the boat that I was supposed to go on. We originally scheduled the trip to be on a sailing vessel with a totally different person, a totally different group. And I'm not gonna be specific, but I did international training with this person. And when I came back, I said, yeah, I don't know about this. I don't think that I wanna do this. And we went with a totally different thing that was way more professional. And I don't know what would have happened if I think the trip fell apart because we pulled out, but it was definitely gonna be more risky. So, but that said, when I was afraid of other things, I still did it. I was terrified of camping in polar bear country, and that did not go wrong. I was not eaten, but if I had been eaten, then maybe a story like this would have come out.
The evidence of the eater was very close to where you slept.
Yeah, as I always tell people, so we pull up our little boat onto the shore, and then we camp 20 feet from the shore, and between the shore and the camp was polar bear tracks. And really close to the water, so you imagine the tracks haven't been there that long. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.